she was not allowed to go anywhere except from her bungalow or her room to the showroom. And that each morning the maids would come in, they would change out the linens and burn them. The idea that an African American was sleeping on these linens was so antithetical to everything that Las Vegans tended to believe.
I don't want no more excuses. Say I don't want no jive. Now I don't want you, baby, if you're the last man alive. I learned my lesson.
After Lena Horne was here, they started to realize, they being the people who ran the casinos, we can't really have black people around at all. We don't care if they're entertainers, we don't care how big they are, Pearl Bailey or Ella Fitzgerald or Nat King Cole, we can't have them in the casinos. The people who are gambling do not want to see black faces.
While in 1947, Lena Horne was the first black performer to stay on the grounds of a new luxury hotel, she would be the last for 9 years. From then on, all black performers were shuttled off to modest boarding houses on the west side of town and into what was then called the Dust Bowl. Las Vegas today is perhaps the most famous and popular international adult playground, filled with casually clad tourists ambling to the next entertainment option. It is hard to imagine this was once a desert town that grew literally from nothing. Yet pioneers of many races came as early as 1904 when Las Vegas was founded, seeking better opportunities in the newest developing town in America. To Stella Parson, old Las Vegas was an oasis from oppression.
I was brought up in the South on a plantation. We were sharecroppers. And of course, you never got out of debt. They would always tell you you didn't make enough money to pay off your debt, so you were always going to be on the farm. And so my brother came out first, and then he got somebody that would come and get us, and he slipped in there during the night and then brought us out. Moving to Las Vegas was great for me, so much better than what we had.
Prior to 1930, the town was certainly small enough where every pair of hands, black or white, was welcome.
In the early days of Nevada and Las Vegas in particular, racism and bigotry and the idea of segregation, it wasn't a problem because there were so few people here at all.
Yet the fate of this sparsely populated town, and in turn the state of racial politics, took a dramatic turn when the rest of the country was most down on its luck. While the Great Depression of the early 1930s was forcing millions around the nation to wait online for a simple piece of bread or a day's wage, the burgeoning city of sin was given its first major boost from Washington.
Without Hoover Dam, there isn't Las Vegas, at least as we know it.
It was in March 1931 that Six Companies Incorporated of San Francisco, California, was awarded the general contract for the construction of the project. And by early summer of the same year, preliminary construction work was in full swing in Black Canyon.
It's the height of the Depression, or the depth, depending on your point of view. Unemployment's going to hit 25% nationally, and suddenly there are thousands of jobs available in southern Nevada. Well, this is great for Las Vegas, of course.
The Hoover Dam, first called the Boulder Dam Project, just 35 miles from town, became the largest, most exciting, and most expensive public project in the country. The government hired a private corporation called Six Companies to complete the dam. Lacking job opportunities at home, workers, mostly poor Southern white men, had come running, armed with their skills and desire for a paycheck.
You would think, well, this would be a great opportunity for people from all over, black individuals, white individuals, to come here and be part of this. Well, the company that built this, one of their criteria, their most important criteria for working on the dam was you have to be a good white citizen. That was actually in the contract. We are open to good white citizens applying.
What the company didn't expect was local black activism. The NAACP chapter, started in Nevada as early as 1918, took the case all the way to the top. Then-President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a liberal for his day, was not happy to find out that a federally funded program was exercising exclusionary practices. The government then forced the hand of Six Companies, and some blacks were finally hired, though not many.
Out of the 5,000 workers that they had, eventually there were 44 people of color working on the dam.
Boulder Dam laborers represented a fair cross-section of the American working class.
Math is not my strong suit, but 44 out of that 5,000 is basically not a lot of people. So for a long time, there was just, even then, not a lot of black people in the area, and part of what kept that down during the Hoover Dam period was the beginning of segregation, was the beginning of the racism, and that was imported.
But segregation was made complete when the nation faced its next greatest challenge, World War II.
December 7, 1941.
Once again, Las Vegas seemed to benefit from another tragic situation when the federal government decided in 1941 to take advantage of the sun, sand, and relative seclusion from the coasts to build up a defense industry in southern Nevada. For the first time, black workers were actively recruited to town.
What really began to trigger migration of blacks was the World War II and the construction of Basic Magnesium, which was a factory that helped to make bombs and airplane fuselages for World War II. They were so short of help after the Pearl Harbor that the company recruited in Arkansas, Louisiana, and other Dixie states, and within a few years, 3,000 blacks moved to the Las Vegas Valley. This began to create a problem in terms of white-race relations.
So as more and more black people started to come into the Las Vegas area, they got shunted off to the west side. There's a thing in real estate, it's called redlining. It's basically when you figuratively or literally do it, you draw a red line and you say, well, this is where the undesirables go. Undesirables, of course, at that time were people of color.
By 1941, Las Vegas, like many cities across America, now had a dividing line that separated the city between black and white. A line that was redrawn daily and many times over by the train. As the railroad had defined the city from the beginning, where one lived became either the east side or the west side of the tracks, with only one road leading to a defining underpass. The difference between the two was far from merely geographic.
In 1942, when we came to Las Vegas, most of the blacks were living in tents because there were no homes built for blacks. I came at a time when a lot of people were migrating from the South to work at the Basic Magnesium plant. And since all of us were pretty much sent to one side of town, there had been no homes built. Very few homes built, so most people just built a floor, stretched a tent, cooked outside, and had outside toilets.
We didn't have paved roads. I can remember the grader coming by and grading the road, and you would run behind the grader playing because now it's smooth. We didn't have sidewalks. We didn't have light sewage and a lot of stuff. We didn't have that.
Well, people started building their own homes. That's how the West Side, I guess, became pretty much a ghetto. because people just built whatever they could build, you know. They throw a house together. Like when I first came, there were about 17 of us living in one tent. So you can imagine. I think we had to fight for everything that we got. We had to fight for the streets. We had to fight for the sidewalks. We had to fight to get the mail delivered and things. I think we had to fight for whatever we had. Yeah, we saw the East, the West. There's quite inequity there, yeah.
The conditions over there were probably some of the worst of any growing metropolitan area in the country. You could call it a third world country, but it was worse than that because, again, even during the Depression, life was better just across the railroad tracks, just across the railroad tracks.
By 1942, 2 major new resort hotels had gone up on what would become the future Strip, the El Rancho and the Last Frontier. But in this new boomtown, the only jobs available to blacks who had migrated here seeking employment were behind the scenes.
They don't want to see them. You know, they don't want to see them, so therefore that was the norm. So that therefore you didn't see the same thing with like bus boys, waitresses. Now all down south, that was the norm.
I don't want to see a black guy carrying my bags. I don't want to see a black guy mixing my drinks. I don't want to see a black guy serving me my meal. So even in Las Vegas, these jobs went to white people.
That's what really bothered me a lot. My dad was helping build Las Vegas with a pick and a shovel. But he had to come back over here, and you could actually contrast for what you saw downtown and what you had on your defined area from A Street to H Street, from Harrison to, what about Washington?
Yeah, Washington.
Mm-hmm. This is my dad and my mom. Great man. I can remember his pain, that he couldn't do better in a lot of areas based on some things that was out of his ability to do. My dad always was saying, you gonna do better. And I remember seeing the hurt. I can remember my mother, how she did the best she possibly could do. And I can remember saying, I was about 5 years old, I can remember saying, if I ever grow up, you ain't gonna have to do this no more.
Over the next decade, the West Side slowly but surely began to develop its own self-supported community, and the contained economy spurred black-owned businesses.
The black community being isolated within itself actually was a city within itself.
Well, my recollection of the West Side was one of community. It made me feel like I belonged. People looked after one another. Everybody knew everybody. There was cleaners, there was shoe shine parlors, there was a bowling alley.
And being Las Vegas, there were, of course, casinos.
And quite frankly, there were a lot of them. There was the Cotton Club and the Ebony Club and the Chickadee, the Brown Derby. Because there was nowhere for black people to go and gamble, West Side started to develop these black casinos of their own because, I mean, let's face it, you got a lock on the business at least, and black people, we like to gamble as much as anybody else.
And within this boundaries, you knew that we had everything that we could possibly want to survive.
But even as things were getting better on the West Side, nothing could compare to what was happening just across the tracks. It is the 1950s, the golden age of entertainment in Vegas.
Oh, look out, look out, look out. How far do you want to go, Mose? We're just getting started.
Back in the 1950s, it was about clubs. It was about club entertainment. So you had these big stars, Sammy Davis Jr., Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Lena Horne, Pearl Bailey, and it was maybe 100, 200 people in a tight room, guys in their best suits, sharkskin suits, women in their bouffants and their pearls. You have a nice steak, you light up a cigarette, and then you sit back and you watch the biggest entertainers of the era who are like sweating distance from you. The sweat was flying off of them and landing on you, and that was the greatest thing that could possibly happen. So for the entertainers of that era, they needed Las Vegas.
Stumpin' Stumpy and Bill Robinson and just about all those people back in that time come through Las Vegas.
Lena Horne, Duke
Horne,
Ellington,
yeah.
Sarah Vaughan, really
All those
great
people.
artists, you know.
Billy Eckstein.
Incomparable. There was a couple of times here when every marquee on the strip
was black.
Was black. On the marquee, the entertainer on both sides of the street, United Street, they were black.
The ability of black entertainers forced Las Vegas hotels to book them. Now, it turned out that Las Vegas, in booking these people, was acknowledging their preeminence in the field, but it turned out the lie we were living was how we were forcing them to live.
I'm not talking about people took advantage of me, hit me in the head, threatened to hang me. I'm not talking about that. It's much more subtle than that. You know, nobody ever said, you're a nigger, go home. But it was very obvious that that's what was going on. When I was finished singing, I should go. And they had no problem with telling me I should go.
We'd do a show, they had to go out by the swimming pool. We didn't have no dress on. And when we finished the show, we had to go on the west side. That's the black side.
Well, on stage, the feeling when you're performing, you know, you're performing and then everybody is applauding whatever you do, and it's fine. As soon as you get through, it's all over for you. I mean, Las Vegas, forget it, nothing. I mean, you weren't allowed to do anything if you were black in Las Vegas.
That's what was so difficult for the entertainers in Las Vegas at that era. It's not that they weren't used to indignities. It's not that they had no idea that there was prejudice or Jim Crow in other parts of the country, but I don't think there was anywhere else where the contrast between personal success, success in business, in what you do as an entertainer, having hundreds of people applaud you, scream your name, stand up, come and see your show, standing room only, and then afterwards having the indignity of being shoved out the back door, literally out the back door of these casinos, out the kitchen door. You know what went out the back door of casinos? It was trash, it was rotting food, and it was black entertainers. No matter how well they'd done on stage, that's what went out the back door.
Some of the stories that you hear about when black entertainers had to come through the back door, and you know, for us to see it, and these days and times, starting in the 70s, you say, what? Come on. It's unbelievable. But it actually happened.
Well, you had Duke Ellington, you had Pearl Bailey, you had
Lena Horne, Ann Weldon, Lena Horne, Dorothy Dandridge.
Yeah, they all worked too. Yeah.
But they had to go around through the back door. You know, even if they were working there, they come in through the kitchen or something, you know. Yeah. And they packaging the people out there. Hey.
And immediately after these celebrities had astounded their audiences, the only place they were welcome was the West Side.
I do remember that the movie stars would live over on F Street, not too far from where our church was located. The main church here was 1117 F Street, and they lived right down the streets. They would entertain on the strip, but they'd have to come over here to live, which was very silly when you think about it.
I saw, let's see, things about the Ink Spots, the Treniers, all of those guys came in. I remember, as I told you earlier, Adela Reese, when she came in with Ed Sullivan.
And Sullivan did a marvelous thing.
We lived in a place called the Dust Bowl, and that was the right name for it. No streets, no anything. We had to drive all the way across town to this place to sleep at night. And I was late getting to work. I didn't have a chance to eat. And so I ordered a hamburger. This is another, I didn't know I couldn't eat there. I'm working there every day. I don't know why I'm gonna pay for it. I'm not asking for anything. So I get on room service and I ask for this hamburger. And I do the first show and I'm waiting on the hamburger, I'm waiting on the hamburger. And it's almost time to do the second show. And I'm still waiting on the hamburger. Nobody has said I can't eat there. The hamburger just didn't arrive, okay? So Blossom Deary, who was a part of the dance team that was on the show, was now raving. She was a Caucasian lady. She was mad as she could be. And she was storming. That's the most ridiculous thing. This child is hungry and you won't give her something to eat. And Mr. Sullivan walked past the door and he said, Blossom, what's the matter? And she told him, she said, this child ordered a hamburger right after the first, she came off first show. They won't feed her. Well, he had a fit. He went to the kitchen and he told him bring a hamburger right away with all the trimmings and everything. Now I'm glad to get the hamburger, so I'm just like eating it. I'm gonna eat it and I'm gonna finish it when I get through because it's time for me to go on. He said, if they'd have brought the hamburger when you got off, you'd be ready to go on now. So now we will have to wait until you finish the hamburger. This is unheard of for a black woman in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Not a very good town to be in, but you either put up with it or you don't eat no work. And there was a lot of work here, so a lot of guys just put up with what was happening.
And this had been happening to Las Vegas's most preeminent black performer, Sammy Davis Jr. But with a little help from another famous friend, Sammy finally pushed his way through the front door and broke a taboo.
There's no question Sammy Davis Jr. was one of the great entertainers of our or any other time. And this story's been told about him, that he finally said, I will not play here unless I can stay here. The Sands didn't want him to stay there, and Sinatra went to bat for him. Supposedly, he was approved to stay at the hotel, and so he decided to go swimming. So many other guests were going in the pool, why not Sammy Davis Jr.? So he goes running out, and he dives into the pool, and as you'd expect of Sammy Davis Jr., it's very graceful.
The next day, one of the patrons who was staying there complained they had to drain the entire pool. I mean, even if you kind of believed that there might be some kind of a hygiene problem with black people, even if you're that paranoid that the chlorine in the pool wouldn't take care of it, that you couldn't just stay out of it for 24 hours, the guy had to have the entire pool drained before he was going to get into it.
It's so ridiculous now to look back at this stuff that, you know, you have to really laugh about it. You have to really have a sense of humor to really think about it or relate to those days, because there was so much hatred and so much bitterness.
But when things seemed at their darkest, in May of 1955, the brightest light for the black community came to town, the Moulin Rouge. White out-of-town owners, seeing an opportunity in the untapped black community, located the club on the city's west side and made it the first interracial hotel and casino in Nevada. And what made it fly was a hand-selected work and entertainment force recruited from every corner in the country. Dee Dee Jasmine was only 16 years old when she first came to Vegas with dreams in hand.
There was a limo that met us, and we drove down the Strip, and I tell you, at that young age, and just seeing these humongous buildings and one across the street from the other, it was like magic, total magic. Thinking that we were going to stop pretty soon at one of those casinos in that area. So we kept on driving, and then we hit Bonanza Boulevard. And we said, uh-oh, here we go again, across the tracks. That's a saying with black people. Anything that they have is across the tracks, you know, so here we went. We turned on Bonanza, made a left turn, and went under the underpass and across the tracks. But to our great, great, great lift and surprise, we saw this gorgeous, gorgeous nightclub. And it was absolutely beautiful then. There stood the Moulin Rouge. our feathers lifted then because we said, oh my God.
The greatest experiment in race relations in Vegas was ready to open its doors. In 1955, the Moulin Rouge became the first integrated hotel in Las Vegas. Dee Dee Jasmine was one of the dancers.
My God, memories, memories, memories. This is the Moulin Rouge, what's left of it. I'm in the casino, finally. My God, this used to be absolutely gorgeous.
While it is hard to imagine now, when the Moulin Rouge opened its doors on May 24, 1955, it was the toast of the town and a rival to any hotel on the Strip.
Here's the murals that are so famous, and oh my God. And then up here, careful, slot machines and everything used to be there at that end. Let me show you here. The bar is still there. Let me see here. In the meantime, all up in here were booths where people could eat.
The food was better than any place. They had great food.
And all the booths were done in purple and gold. And I see they took the chandeliers down, and they were just absolutely gorgeous. Here's the chandeliers and things here.
Everything was first class.
Bob Bailey was recruited from New York City to be the entertainment director and the Moulin Rouge's MC.
The waiters were so good, and I'm not exaggerating. If you pull out a cigarette, before you could get it in your mouth, there was a light there for you to inhale. They moved stealthily throughout the room, almost like cats.
Oh, it's so sad to see it this way. Okay, we're entering into the showroom now. I wish we could go down in there. Here we go up the steps, and I'm going on the stage that I danced on 50 years ago.
But while the food, service, and overall elegance was a huge draw, nothing could touch the allure of the entertainment.
This is the stage. Oh, this is a wonderful feeling. And here are the dressing rooms.
What really made it unique was that they went after high-class entertainment. And of course, the high-class entertainment, some of the highest-class entertainment in that era were the black entertainers. Again, your Sammy Davis Jr.'s, your Lena Horne's, your Eartha Kitt's. They were coming down there and performing.
Here is my dressing room back here with all the chorus girls. And in between shows, we used to sit there and just kill time and have a ball.
If you weren't at the Moulin Rouge, you were nobody.
While the Strip could certainly claim their share of top-name black performers, what they didn't have was the Rouge's totally exotic floor show with some of the most beautiful dancers in the country.
I guess there must have been 12 or 14 girls, all gorgeous, shapely, and make you tip your head every time you walk by them.
Not only were they beautiful, and not only were they exotic in maybe the concept of the time of we don't get to see a lot of black women, but the show that they put on was incredibly exotic. They would come out and they would open, I think their opening number was, I think it was called the Tropican Can.
It was really good.
But the big showstopper was the Watusi.
That was the famous number, the Watusi.
The Watusi was the big thing because you would have these beautiful, lean, tall, sexy women black on top of it, coming out, doing this kind of bump and grind. I mean, it's the kind of thing that you would see on MTV now all the time, but 1955, nobody was doing it.
We are the Watusis, strange enchanted Watusis.
There was one dancer, she had blonde hair. You know what I mean? A black girl back then in blonde hair. I mean, now Little Kim, all the black women have blonde hair, but back then, can you imagine? Tall, good-looking, voluptuous, black woman, blonde hair, doing the Watusi. I want to build a time machine and go back and check that out.
You're kidding!
That blonde was Dee Dee Jasmine.
I don't know why he said the blonde girl. Oh my God, what a compliment. What a compliment. You know how they say you can hear the audience? I could just hear them right now, and I could just feel me dancing right now, you know, and the joy that I had at the time that I was doing it. It's wonderful.
Despite its unbelievable level of success, less than 6 months later, Moulin Rouge employees showed up one night only to find padlocks on the doors. The greatest experiment and best party in town was suddenly shut down.
We were getting ready to go to work the next night after a packed house and a full show. And we went there, and the doors were padlocked. They were just closed from one day to the other. You talk about devastated.
That was a disaster.
Yeah, I left here on a Sunday evening. I went back to California, and Monday someone called me and said the Moulin Rouge is closed. I said, you gotta be kidding. I never saw a place, a business, closed when it was doing standing room business only. You know, never. So when I came back, it was just like a ghost town, you know, in that area, that block.
Like so much of Las Vegas history, the closing of the Moulin Rouge is shrouded in mystery, spoken word, accusations, and behind-the-scenes deals that left no paper trails. Some say the club closed because of bad business deals, short-term bank loans, or jealous club owners on the Strip, angry at the loss of business. Whatever the real reason, the feelings still rage with the same passion as the dancing feet on the Rouge's once burning hot stage.
My theory was, and seeing it the way it was done, that the intent from the very beginning was that that was not going to be a lasting thing. That was laundered money. I'm not saying that that's the gospel. That was laundered money, and they never intended for that to be an ongoing thing at the Moulin Rouge with a black show and an integrated, because Las Vegas was segregated. And you know, the bottom line about anything, it's all about money. So it's a mixture of prejudice and money.
The fact that the Moulin Rouge's lights were snuffed out prematurely was a terrible blow and a reminder to most black Las Vegans of who holds the power in town. Being cordoned off behind the concrete curtain was no longer becoming tolerable. The Moulin Rouge had opened a window to integration. It would be 5 years before the entire wall came down. By 1960, not even Las Vegas could shield itself from the growing tide of unrest that was engulfing the rest of the country as the civil rights movement had pushed its way front and center. Urban riots, boycotts, and marches revealed a smoldering fire just waiting to burst. In tourist-dependent Las Vegas, fires were intended only for show. Protecting the escapist, glittering image of the resort city in the sun was crucial. And the local chapter of the NAACP, headed by Vegas's first black dentist, Dr. James McMillan, knew this was just the card they needed to finally topple Jim Crow. On May 11, 1955, McMillan took action.
McMillan finally sends a letter to the city of Las Vegas saying, if you do not allow us on the Strip in 30 days, we're organizing a boycott.
The local chapter of the NAACP finally said, we're sick of this, we're sick of the racism, we're sick of the bigotry, we're going to start picketing and protesting. We're going to do what's going on in the South, but we're going to bring it here to an upscale cosmopolitan city.
They just notified them they were going to march on the Strip. And as Bob always says, you know, a bunch of people, a group of people who are angry are fierce looking anyway. And you know, we don't want those, those Strip hotel owners did not want a bunch of fierce looking people walking down the Strip with all the cameras, you know, taking their picture.
So there was this fear that there was going to be this big march, business was going to drop off. Again, all about the money. If we're not making money, it's a bad thing.
And perhaps nothing hurts a tourist city more than bad press. The local paper, run by liberal editor Hank Greenspun, ran with the NAACP threat and made it a daily presence.
Fortunately, there was a guy here in Vegas, Hank Greenspun, founder and the editor of the Las Vegas Sun. And he didn't like what was going on. He didn't like the racism. He didn't like the bigotry. And he stepped in and he sat down with the NAACP and some of the other local politicians and really forged an agreement. So the day before the protest was meant to happen, it was March 25th of 1960, everybody got together, ironically, at the Moulin Rouge, and about 5 years almost to the day after the Moulin Rouge first opened, and they signed this agreement that basically, again, on paper, if not in people's hearts, ended segregation and bigotry in the city of Las Vegas. It was known as the Moulin Rouge Agreement, and that was the beginning of the new era.
The people who helped Vegas were the people who moved there and lived there and voted there and insisted on their rights there. I came in and out. I didn't do anything. None of us did. We came in, we got the money, we left. The people who deserve the credit for whatever changes have been made in Vegas are the people who moved there and let them went through all the things they went through and said, no, it won't be a dust bowl. You will put some cement on the ground over here. And no, we won't stay in this corner. We will come out from here. Those are the people that saw the changes.
Within a week, McMillan reported 90% compliance in all the resorts. Of course, there is no such thing as an overnight reversal of long-entrenched discrimination. The battles for equal rights and opportunities would continue into the next decade, especially over equal opportunity in the workplace. And for many, like most parts of the country, the issue of racial equality in general has never been fully resolved. On issues of black and white, it is the color green, an individual experience, that counts.
So when I go down now and I gamble, and when I see how people treat me now, and I know that it's still about money, but it's about the green, and that's all they care about.
It's how you turn 2,500 into 500.
When I finished there, I said, I'll never go to this town again, period.
I think we're still the last one hired, first one fired. No, it's not equal.
It's still changing, sweetheart.
But the amazing thing, after all the years, I ended up moving to Las Vegas, spending about 4 years there, living there.
To the extent that they don't stand for it anymore, that's how much of a change has been made.
To be honest with you, it's more undercurrent than it was.
I think we have to be twice as good. Work twice as hard.
It's much better, but it's not there yet.
There's the good life and a lot of fascinations in Las Vegas. You can feel the warm vibration, suddenly it's going your way. And Lady Luck are coming through the door. Winter, spring, summer or fall, Las Vegas got it all. I love it. Las Vegas, my hometown. Yeah.